It was the 8th century of the 11th age, the 15th full moon, in the human kingdom of Rokovitnaya. The land had known an uneasy peace for 20 generations. The great golden moon marked the fall harvest in full hustle and bustle. Vizhnaya was host to traders from the elven lands come across the Gulf of Buryana in the south sailing their tall ships, and the wagon trains of Saurians from the west. All had gathered to barter for the bounty of buckwheat, beans, maize, and vegetables. Velok Tharn cheerfully greeted the farmers at his table in the Amber Hearth pub. He was an ancient Saurian, wealthy, jovial, and quick-witted. The din of trading and the clinking of ale-steins filled the happy room. Tharn took special interest when Yaroslav Dmitrievich Kovalenko, or Yarek, strode in. Tharn had heard of this one. He was no common farmer, no. Yarek had earned a reputation as a rogue. He'd spent his share of nights in the local tower guard room. He was one of the very few Rokovs who had ever dared to cross the Knietor River Bridge and poke about in the forbidden eastern dread lands of Uthyintanar. He was a charismatic, bold spirit and popular with the younger men in the hamlets nearby. This was the Rokov that Tharn very much wanted to meet, for the ancient Saurian had a plan. By the time their business was done, Yarek was resolute. He enlisted 2 of his bolder friends, Misha, a bowman and hunter, and Koila, a stout fighter with a good steel short sword. At Tharn's urging, they snuck past the sleepy guards in the tower and made their way eastward toward the ruined village in search of treasure. Tharn would pay them well for any elven magic crystals they could pry from the greedy clutches of their undead guardians. Fate had awakened. The time known as the Strife of Ancient Swords had begun. The ruins stood eerily silent, awaiting our heroes. Did it contain mystical treasures? Were the stories of undead guardians true? Yarek and his friends would soon find out. Circling around the ruins and entering the village from the northeast, our heroes immediately noticed a faint glow at the entrance to a nearby mausoleum. Just as Velok had told them, the treasures would reveal themselves to the bold upon approach. The ethereal glow was instantly answered by a deep humming from the obelisk at the center of the village square. Instantly, 3 armed skeleton warriors sprang from the soil with rusty armor and deadly weapons. They began to moan in rage that the living had disturbed their sacred ground. Unable to see the deadly sentries, our heroes rushed to the glow. There they found an ancient jar. Koila reached it first, but stopped in his tracks when he heard the moans of the skeletons. Yarek stepped past him and immediately spotted some green glowing crystals. Elven stone! He quickly pocketed them. Misha tried to knock an arrow, but his trembling hands failed him. The sentries screeched and rushed toward another glowing area. The sound and fury of their rattling bones and clanking armor drew the gaze of our heroes. Seeing both the undead enemies and the new cache of treasure, Yarek urged his friends forward. Surely a few rattling bags of bones would not deny them their bounty. Misha loosed 2 arrows at the skeletons, missing both shots. Then he bent down and used his knife to pry the lid off of the ancient pot in the hope of more treasure. Instead, a skeleton lizard leapt out and coiled around his arm, sinking its fangs in deeply. Misha cried out and struggled to free himself of the undead creature. Misha bellowed with rage. He pried the creature off of his arm, causing it to crumble to dust. But his heart was pounding and his arm bleeding badly. Seeing the skeletons rushing toward his friends, he drew a powder bomb from his pouch and threw it at them. The lead skeleton caught it and stopped in his tracks, confused by the sputtering fuse. The bomb exploded in his hand, with a deafening boom and a blinding flash. 1 skeleton was gone. Misha drew his bow and fired 2 shots at the other skeletons. 1 miss, but the other arrow knocked the head off of the second skeleton, sending it scurrying into the rubble in search of its eyes. Koila let out a mighty war cry and leapt upon the third skeleton, hacking it to bits. Misha stopped to catch his breath and bind his bleeding arm. With nothing menacing them except the humming obelisk, both Koila and Yarrick rushed toward the glow. They searched around desperately, but could not find the source of the light. The obelisk let out a screeching sound, and 3 zombie wolves entered the village from the southwest. They came on at a full run, howling and trailing ethereal fog. Misha, having caught his breath, carefully aims 2 arrows at the wolves, hitting one, blasting it to dust. Yarrick finds the elven crystals and pockets them. The 2 remaining wolves set upon Koila, and a wild melee ensues. Koila skillfully dodges all their lunging, snapping bites and expertly dispatches both specters with quick, efficient sword thrusts. 3 more wolves burst from the woods behind Yarrick, trapping him with his back to a hill. Yarrick proves his skill as a rogue, leaping over the wolves and running away as they snap helplessly at his ankles. Misha notices a chest near a ruined sewer. Grabbing and prying it open, he's hit with an ethereal booby trap. A blast of energy shoots into his leg, crippling him. Undaunted, he draws a magical arrow from his quiver and shoots it at the wolves. It bursts over them in a shower of sparks. One of the wolves crumbles to dust. Koila again finishes off the wolves with a howling sword attack, but this time he takes a bite wound on his shield arm. With another scream, the pylon summons 3 skeleton archers at the opposite corner of the village. Seeing no more glowing treasure, our wounded heroes exit the village to the southeast. Once out of range of the obelisk, the undead archers lose interest in them. Our heroes sneak back to Vizhnaya to sell their booty to Tharn and bind their wounds.